The Chola dynasty was a Tamil dynasty of southern India, one of the longest ruling dynasties in the world's history. The earliest datable references to the Chola are in inscriptions, from the 3rd century BCE left by Ashoka, of the Maurya Empire. As one of the 3 crowned kings of Tamilakam, along with the Chera and Pandya, the dynasty continued to govern over varying territory until the 13th century AD. Despite these ancient origins, the period when it is appropriate to speak of a Chola empire only begins with the medieval Cholas in the mid-9th century AD. The heartland of the Cholas was the fertile valley of the Kaveri River, but they ruled a significantly larger area at the height of their power from the later half of the 9th century till the beginning of the 13th century. The whole country south of the Tungabhadra was united and held as one state for a period of 3 centuries and more between 907 and 1215 AD. Under Raja Chola and his successors, the dynasty became a military, economic and cultural power in South Asia and Southeast Asia. The power of the new empire was proclaimed to the Eastern world by the expedition to the Ganges which Rajendra Chola undertook and by naval raids on cities of the city-state of Srivijaya, as well as by the repeated embassies to China. The Chola fleet represented the zenith of ancient Indian sea power. During the period 1010 to 1153, the Chola territories stretched from the islands of the Maldives in the south to as far north as the banks of the Godavari River in Andhra Pradesh. Raja Chola conquered peninsular South India, annexed parts of which is now Sri Lanka, and occupied the islands of the Maldives. Rajendra Chola sent a victorious expedition to North India that touched the river Ganges and defeated the Pala ruler of Pataliputra, Mahipala. He also successfully invaded cities of Srivijaya of Malaysia and Indonesia. The major achievements of the Cholas would be in architecture. There is a reason why their rule was considered a golden age. Cholas used their immense wealth in building magnificent temples and structures. It would be an understatement to call the architecture of the Chola period as grand. It was more like grandiose and towering. The sheer size of their temples, the towering vimanas, the sculpted walls, just every aspect of their monuments displayed grandeur. And of course nothing to beat the Brihadiswara temple at Thanjavur, that is a benchmark by itself in architectural excellence. Even if the Cholas had not built anything else, just the Brihadiswara temple would have been enough. Just consider the facts: built fully of granite, finished within 5 years, that was quite fast for that period. And then you have the Vimana that towers to around 216 feet, and this is just awe-inspiring. On top of the tower, you have a colosseum, made out of a single block of stone, that weighs around 20 tons, and was lifted to the top using an inclined plane that covered 6.44 kilometers from the ground to the top. The Cholas built big. Their structures were meant to tower, to inspire awe, to take away the breath. It was not just the grand buildings, it was also the sculpture and art that adorned them, which was equally breathtaking. The other magnificent structures built by the Cholas were the temple at Gangaikonda Cholapuram, which is next only to the Brihadiswara temple at Tanjore, in size, grandeur and architectural excellence. And also the Airavateswara temple at Darajuram, dedicated to Lord Shiva, and so called because it is believed that the Shiva Linga here was worshipped by Indra's elephant Airavath. The Chola period also witnessed a glorious phase in bronze casting and making of idols. The bronze idols of the Chola period were more expressive in nature, and devoid of too many intricate ornaments or designs. The bronze idol of Nataraja, the dancing form of Shiva, represents the artistic excellence during that era. Chola period had robust and thriving economy that was built on 3 tiers. At the local level, it was agricultural settlements that formed the foundation. On top of this you had the nagarams or the commercial towns that primarily acted as centers of distribution for items produced externally and by local artisans for international trade. The topmost layer was made of merchant guilds, who organized and looked after the thriving international maritime trade. With agriculture being the occupation of a large number of people, land revenue was a major source of income to the treasury. The Cholas also built a large number of tanks, wells, and a large number of channels to distribute water. They had also built stone masonry dams over the Kaveri, and there was a thriving internal trade going on too. The Chola military was quite powerful. From constant trades at the naval bases of the Srivijaya kingdom to the invasion of Sri Lanka, all this showed the strength of the Chola military. Under the reign of the father-son duo of Raja Raja and Rajendra, a number of military conquests were undertaken. The Cholas are famous for their powerful navy. There was extensive sea trade between the Arabs, the southern Indian kingdoms such as Cholas and Pallavas and Chinese. The port of Srivijaya, present-day Indonesia, was an important port of call for the Arabs who traded directly with China using the sea routes. The ruler of Srivijaya promoted piracy, which led to huge booty bounty. This caused an increase in prices for horses, which the Cholas dependent on the Arabs. The need for curbing piracy made it necessary for the Cholas to have a powerful navy. During the reign of Raja Raja, the Cheras and the Pandyas got defeated and the Chola authority was asserted over them. The invasion of Sri Lanka, which led to the King Mahinda V fleeing away and the Cholas taking over northern Sri Lanka. Raja Raja's last military achievement was a naval expedition against the Maldive Islands, which were conquered. Rajendra continued his father's policy of aggressive conquests and expansion. When Mahinda, the king of Sri Lanka, attempted to recover from the Cholas the northern part of Ceylon, Rajendra defeated him and seized the southern Sri Lanka. This led to whole of Sri Lanka coming under the rule of Cholas. His most famous military enterprise was his expedition to North India. The Chola army crossed the Ganges by defeating a number of rulers on its way. Rajendra defeated Mahipala I of Bengal. He organized naval expeditions to Srivijaya. At the height of the Chola rule, it occupied the southern India while having a strong influence over the countries in the southeast. The Chola dynasty went into decline at the beginning of the 13th century with the rise of the Pandyan dynasty, which ultimately caused their downfall. The Cholas left a lasting legacy. Their patronage of Tamil literature and their zeal in the building of temples has resulted in some great works of Tamil literature and architecture. The Chola kings were avid builders and envisioned the temples in their kingdoms not only as places of worship but also as centers of economic activity. They pioneered a centralized form of government and established a disciplined bureaucracy. The Chola school of art spread to Southeast Asia and influenced the architecture and art of Southeast Asia.